Hello everyone. I'm reading from Autobiography of a Yogi starting on page 188. Superstitious awe of astrology makes one an automaton, slavishly dependent on mechanical guidance. The wise man defeats his planets, which is to say his past, by transferring his allegiance from the creation to the Creator. The more he realizes his unity with spirit, the less he is dominated by matter. The soul is ever free. It is deathless because birthless. It cannot be regimented by stars. Man is a soul and has a body. When he properly places his sense of identity, he leaves behind all compulsive patterns, so long as he remains confused in his ordinary state of spiritual amnesia. He will know the subtle fetters of environmental law. God is harmony. The devotee who attunes himself will never perform any action amiss. His activities will be correctly and naturally timed to accord with astrological law. After deep prayer and meditation, he is in touch with divine consciousness. There is no greater power than that inward protection. Then, dear Master, why do you want me to wear an astrological bangle? I ventured this question after a long silence. I had tried to assimilate Sri Yukteswar's noble exposition, which contained thoughts very new to me. It is only when a traveler has reached his goal that he is justified in discarding his maps. During the journey, he takes advantage of any convenient shortcut. The ancient rishis discovered many ways to curtail the period of man's exile in delusion. There are certain mechanical features in the law of karma that can be skillfully adjusted by the fingers of wisdom. All human ills arise from some transgression of universal law. The scriptures point out that man must satisfy the laws of nature while not discrediting the divine omnipotence. He should say, Lord, I trust in Thee, and I know Thou canst help me, but I too will do my best to undo any wrong I have done. By a number of means, by prayer, by willpower, by yoga meditation, by consultation with saints, by use of astrological bangles, the adverse effects of past wrongs can be minimized or nullified. Just as a house may be fitted with a copper rod to absorb the shock of lightning, so the bodily temple can be protected in certain ways. Electrical and magnetic radiations are ceaselessly circulating in the universe. They affect a man's body for good and ill. Ages ago, our rishis pondered the problem of combating the adverse effects of subtle cosmic influences. The sages discovered that pure metals emit an astral light which is powerfully counteractive to negative pulls of the planets. Certain plant combinations were also found to be helpful. Most effective of all are faultless jewels of no less than 2 carats. The practical preventive uses of astrology have seldom been seriously studied outside of India. One little known fact is that the proper jewels, metals, and plant preparations are valueless unless the required weight is secured and unless the remedial agent is worn next to the skin. Sir, of course I shall take your advice and get a bangle. I am intrigued at the thought of outwitting a planet. For general purposes, I counsel the use of an amulet made of gold, silver, and copper. But for a specific purpose, I want you to get one of silver and lead. Sri Yukteswar added careful directions. Guruji, what specific purposes do you mean? The stars are about to take an unfriendly interest in you, Mukunda. Fear not. You shall be protected. In about a month your liver will cause you much trouble. The illness is scheduled to last for 6 months, but your use of an astrological armlet will shorten the period to 24 days. I sought out a jeweler the next day and was soon wearing the bangle. My health was excellent. Master's prediction slipped from my mind. He left Surampur to visit Benares. 30 days after our conversation, I felt a sudden pain in the region of my liver. The following weeks were a nightmare of excruciating pain. Reluctant to disturb my guru, I thought I would bravely endure my trial alone. But 23 days of torture weakened my resolution. I entrained for Benares. There Sri Yukteswar greeted me with unusual warmth, but gave me no opportunity to tell him my woes in private. Many devotees visited Master that day just for a darshan. Ill and neglected, I sat in a corner. It was not until after the evening meal that all the guests had departed, my guru summoned me to the octagonal balcony of the house. You must have come about your liver disorder. Sri Yukteswar's gaze was averted. He walked to and fro, occasionally intercepting the moonlight. Let me see. You have been ailing for 24 days, haven't you? Yes, sir. Please do the stomach exercise I taught you. If you knew the extent of my suffering, Master, you would not ask me to exercise. Nevertheless, I made a feeble attempt to obey him. You say you have pain. I say you have none. How can such contradictions exist? My guru looked at me inquiringly. I was dazed, then overcome with joyful relief. No longer could I feel the continuous torment that had kept me nearly sleepless for weeks. Since Yukteswar's words, the agony vanished as though it had never been. I started to kneel at his feet in gratitude, but he quickly prevented me. Don't be childish. Get up and enjoy the beauty of the moon over the Ganges. But Master's eyes were twinkling happily as I stood in silence beside him. I understood by his attitude that he wanted me to feel that not he, but God had been the healer. I wear even now the heavy silver and lead bangle, a memento of that day, long past, ever cherished, when I found anew that I was living with a personage indeed superhuman. On later occasions, when I brought my friends to Sri Yukteswar for healing, he invariably recommended jewels or the bangle, extolling their use as an act of astrological wisdom. I had been prejudiced against astrology from my childhood, partly because I observed that many people are sequentially attracted to it, and partly because of a prediction made by our family astrologer. You will marry 3 times, being twice a widower. I brooded over the matter, feeling like a goat awaiting sacrifice before the temple of triple matrimony. You may as well be resigned to your fate, my brother Anatta had remarked. Your written horoscope has been correctly stated that you would fly from home toward the Himalayas during your early years, but would be forcibly returned. The forecast of your marriages is also bound to be true. A clear intuition came to me one night that the prophecy was wholly false. A clear intuition came to me one night that the prophecy was wholly false. I set fire to the horoscope scroll, placing the ashes in a paper bag on which I wrote, "Seeds of past karma cannot germinate if they are roasted in the fires of divine wisdom." I put the bag in a conspicuous spot. Anatta immediately read my defiant comment. "You cannot destroy truth as easily as you have burnt this paper scroll," my brother laughed scornfully. It is a fact that on 3 occasions before I reached manhood, my family tried to arrange my betrothal. betrothal. Each time I refused to fall in with the plans, knowing that my love for God was more overwhelming than any astrological persuasion from the past. The deeper the self-realization of a man, the more he influences the whole universe by his subtle spiritual vibrations, and the less he himself is affected by the phenomenal flux. These words of masters often return inspiringly to my mind. Occasionally I told astrologers to select my worst periods according to planetary indications, and I would still accomplish whatever task I set myself. It is true that my success at such times has been preceded by extraordinary difficulties, but my conviction has always been justified. Faith in divine protection and the right use of man's God-given will are forces more formidable than the influence flowing from the heavens. The starry inscription at one's birth, I came to understand, is not that man is a puppet of his past. Its message is rather a prod to pride. The very heavens seek to arouse man's determination to be free from every limitation. God created each man as a soul, dowered with individuality, hence essential to the universal structure, whether it in the temporary role of pillar or parasite. His freedom is final and immediate. If he so wills, it depends not on outer but inner victories. Sri Yukteswar discovered the mathematical application of a 24,000-year equinoctial cycle to our present age. The cycle is divided into an ascending arc and a descending arc, each of 12,000 years. Within each arc, four yugas or ages called Kali, Dwapara, Treta, and Satya, corresponding to the Greek ideas of iron, bronze, silver, and gold ages. My guru determined by various calculations that the last Kali Yuga, or Iron Age, of the ascending arc started about AD 500. The Iron Age, 1200 years in duration, is a span of materialism. It ended about AD 1700. That year ushered in the Dwapara Yuga, a 2400-year period of electrical and atomic energy developments, the age of telegraphy, radio, airplanes, and other space annihilators. The 3600-year period of the Treta Yuga will start in AD 4100. The age will be marked by common knowledge of telepathic communications and other time annihilators. During the 4800 years of Satya Yuga, final age in an ascending arc, the intelligence of man will be highly developed. He will work in harmony with the divine plan. A descending arc of 12,000 years, starting with a descending golden age of 4,800 years, then begins for the world at AD 12,500. Man generally sinks into ignorance. These cycles are the eternal rounds of Maya, the contrasts and relativities of the phenomenal universe. Men, one by one, escape from creation's prison of duality as they awaken to consciousness of their inseparable divine unity with the Creator. Master enlarged my understanding not only of astrology but of the world scriptures. Placing the holy texts on the spotless table of his mind, he was able to dissect them with the scalpel of intuitive reasoning and separate errors and interpolations of the scholars from the truths which originally expressed by the prophets. Fix one's vision on the end of the nose. This inaccurate interpretation of a Bhagavad Gita stanza, widely accepted by Eastern pundits and Western translators, used to arouse Master's droll criticism. "The path of a yogi is singular enough as it is," he remarked. "Why counsel him that he must also make himself cross-eyed? The true meaning of Nasikagram is origin of the nose, not end of the nose. The nose originates at the point between the eyebrows, the seat of spiritual vision." One Sankahaya aphorism reads, "As is Wawar Asidhi. A lord of creation cannot be deduced," or God is not proved. Chiefly on the basis of this sentence, most scholars call the whole philosophy atheistical. The verse is not atheistical, Sri Yukteswar explained. It merely signifies that to the unenlightened man, dependent on his senses for all final judgments, proof of God must remain unknown and therefore non-existent. True Sankahaya followers, with unshakable insight born of meditation, understand that the Lord is both existent and knowable. Master expounded the Christian Bible with a beautiful clarity. It was from my Hindu guru, unknown to the roll call of Christian membership, that I learned to perceive the deathless essence of the Bible and to understand the truth of Christ's assertion, surely the most thrilling intransigent ever uttered. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away. That's Matthew 24:35. And there's also a reference here to Luke 11:34 through 35. The great masters of India mold their lives by the same godly ideals that animated Jesus. These men are his proclaimed kin. "Whosoever shall do the will of my Father which is in heaven, the same is my brother and sister and mother." That's Matthew 12:50. "If ye continue in my word," Christ pointed out, "then are ye my disciples indeed, and ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." That's John 8:31-32. Free men all, lords of themselves, the Yogi Christ of India are part of the immortal fraternity, those that attain a liberating knowledge of the One Father. The Adam and Eve story is incomprehensible to me. I observed with considerable heat one day in my early struggles with the allegory. Why did God punish not only the guilty pair, but also the innocent unborn generations? Master was amused, more by my vehemence than by my ignorance. Genesis is deeply symbolic and cannot be grasped by any literal interpretation, he explained. Its tree of life is the human body. The spinal cord is like an upturned tree, with man's hair at its roots, and afferent and efferent nerves as branches. The tree of the nervous system bears many enjoyable fruits or sensations of sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch, but in these man may rightfully indulge. But he was forbidden the experience of sex. The apple at the center of the body, in the midst of the garden. The serpent represents the coiled up spinal energy that stimulates the sex nerves. Adam is reason and Eve is feeling. When the emotion or Eve consciousness in any human being is overpowered by the sex impulse, his reason or Adam also succumbs. God created the human species by materializing the bodies of man and woman through the force of his will. He endowed the new species with the power to create children in a similar, immaculate, or divine manner. Because his manifestation in the individualized soul had hitherto been limited to animals, instinct-bound and lacking the potentialities of full reason, God made the first human bodies, symbolically called Adam and Eve. To these for advantageous upward evolution, he transferred the souls or divine essence of two animals. In Adam or man, reason predominated. In Eve or woman, feeling was ascendant. Thus was expressed the duality or polarity that underlies the phenomenal worlds. Reason and feeling remain in a heaven of cooperative joy so long as the human mind is not tricked by the serpentine energy of animal propensities. The human body was therefore not solely a result of evolution from beasts, but was produced through an act of special creation by God. The animal forms were too crude to express full divinity. Man was uniquely given the potentially omniscient thousand-petaled lotus in the brain, as well as an acutely awakened occult centers in the spine. God, or the divine consciousness, present within the first created pair, counseling them to enjoy all human sensibilities, with one exception, sex sensations. These were banned, lest humanity enmesh itself in the inferior animal method of propagation. The warning not to revive subconsciously present bestial memories was unheeded. Resuming the way of brute procreation, Adam and Eve fell from the state of heavenly joy natural to the original perfect man. When they knew that they were naked, their consciousness of immortality was lost, even as God had warned them. They had placed themselves under the physical law by which bodily birth must be followed by bodily death. The knowledge of good and evil promised Eve by the serpent refers to the dualistic and oppositional experiences that mortals under Maya must undergo. Falling into delusion through the misuse of his feelings and reason, or even Adam consciousness, man relinquishes his right to enter the heavenly garden of divine self-sufficiency. The personal responsibility for every human being is to restore his parents, or dual nature of unified harmony, or Eden. As Sri Yukteswar ended his discourse, I glanced with new respect at the pages of Genesis. "Dear Master," I said, "for the first time I feel a proper filial obligation towards Adam and Eve." Chapter 17. Shasi and the Three Sapphires. Because you and my son think so highly of Swami Sri Yukteswar, I will take a look at him. The tone of voice used by Dr. Narayan Chunda Roy implied that he was humoring the whim of half-wits. I concealed my indignation in the best tradition of the proselyter. My companion, a veterinary surgeon, was a confirmed agnostic. His young son, Santosh, had implored me to take an interest in his father. So far, my invaluable aid had been a bit on the invisible side. Dr. Roy accompanied me the following day to the Simrapur Hermitage. After Master had granted him a brief interview, marked for the most part by stoic silence on both sides, the visitors brusquely departed. "Why bring a dead man to the ashram?" Sri Yukteswar looked at me inquiringly as soon as the door had closed on the Calcutta skeptic. "Sir, the doctor is very much alive, but in a short time he will be dead." I was shocked. "Sir, this will be a terrible blow to his son." Santosh yet hopes for time to change his father's materialistic views. I beseech you, Master, to help this man. Very well, for your sake. The Guru's face was impassive. The proud horse doctor is far gone in diabetes, although he does not know it. In 15 days he will take to his bed. The physicians will give him up for lost. His natural time to leave earth is 6 weeks from today. Owing to your intercession, however, on that date he will recover. But there is one condition. You must get him to wear an astrological bangle. He will doubtless object as violently as one of his horses before an operation, Master chuckled. After a silence, during which I wondered how Santosh and I might best employ the arts of cajolery on the doctor, Sri Yukteswar made further disclosures. As soon as the man gets well, advise him not to eat meat. He will not heed this counsel, however. In 6 months, just as he is feeling at his best, he will drop dead. My Guru added, the 6 months extension of life is granted him only because of your plea. The following day, I suggested to Santosh that he order an amulet at the jeweler's. It was ready in a week, but Dr. Roy refused to put it on. I am in the best of health. You will never impest me with these astrological superstitions. The doctor glanced at me belligerently. I recalled with amusement that Master had justifiably compared the man to a balky horse. Another 7 days passed. The doctor, suddenly ill, meekly consented to wear the bangle. 2 weeks later, the physician in attendance told me that the patient's case was hopeless. He supplied harrowing details of the ravages inflicted by diabetes. I shook my head. My Guru has said that after a sickness lasting 1 month, Dr. Roy will be well. The physician stared at me incredulously, but he sought me out a fortnight later with an apologetic air. Dr. Roy has made a complete recovery, he exclaimed. It is the most amazing case in my experience. Never before have I seen a dying man show such an inexplicable comeback. Your Guru must indeed be a healing prophet. After one interview with Dr. Roy, during which I repeated Sri Yukteswar's advice about a meatless diet, I did not see the man again for 6 months. We stopped for a chat one evening as I sat on the piazza of my family's home. Tell your teacher that by eating meat frequently I have wholly regained my strength. His unscientific ideas on diet have not influenced me. It was true that Dr. Roy looked a picture of health. But the next day Santosh came running to me from his home on the next block. This morning Father dropped dead. This case was one of my strangest experiences with Master. He healed the rebellious veterinary surgeon in spite of his disbelief and extended the man's natural term on earth by 6 months. Just because of my earnest supplication, Sri Yukteswar was boundless in his kindness when responding to an urgent prayer of a devotee. It was my proudest privilege to bring college friends to meet my Guru. Many of them would lay aside, at least in the ashram, their fashionable academic cloak of religious skepticism. One of my friends, Sasi, spent a number of happy weekends in Semapur. Master became immensely fond of the boy and lamented that his private life was wild and disorderly. Sasi, unless you reform, 1 year hence you will be dangerously ill. Sri Yukteswar gazed at my friend with affectionate exasperation. Mukunda is the witness. Don't say later that I didn't warn you. Sasi laughed. Master, I will leave it to you to interest a sweet charity of cosmos in my own sad case. My spirit is willing, but my will is weak. You are my only Savior on earth. I believe in nothing else. At least you should wear a 2-carat blue sapphire. It will help you. I can't afford one. Anyhow, dear Guruji, if trouble comes, I fully believe you will protect me. In a year, You will bring 3 sapphires, Sir Yutswar replied, but they will be no use then. Variations on this conversation took place regularly. I can't reform, Sasi would say in comical despair, and I trust in you, Master, and is more precious. And my trust in you, Master, is more precious to me than any stone. Okay, that is the bottom of page 202. That's it for today.